What would you do if the person you loved most in the world tried to kill you? Would you scream? Would you fight back? Or would you stay silent and plan your revenge? Before we begin this incredible story, I want to ask you something important. Please hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me know that you enjoy these stories and want to hear more. And please, comment below and tell me what city or country you are watching from. We love hearing from you, no matter where you are in the world. Now, let's dive into this story. You will burn with this house, you horrible old woman. Those were the last words I heard before I saw the tiny flame appear. My son, Thomas, stood in the doorway with eyes that looked empty and cold. He was holding a match between his fingers, and I knew right then that this was not a joke. This was real. The smell of gasoline filled the air and made my nose burn. My heart started beating so fast I thought it might break through my chest. The fire caught the living room curtains first. They turned orange and black almost instantly. I heard the front door slam shut. I heard the lock click. Then I heard his car engine start outside and the sound of tires on gravel as he drove away into the night. For a moment, I just stood there. I watched the shadows from the flames dance across the walls like evil spirits. The heat touched my face gently at first, then harder, like angry hands pushing me. I did not cry. I did not scream for help. Instead, I took a slow, deep breath and touched the small lump hidden beneath my dress with shaking fingers. It was my secret. My only hope. My way to make things right again. The smoke started crawling up the stairs like a living creature searching for something to choke. It moved slowly but with purpose. I knew I did not have much time left. The air was getting thicker and harder to breathe. But I also knew I could not die yet. Not tonight. Not before I fixed everything that had gone wrong. The first time I ever saw fire up close, I was only 7 years old. My father used to burn the old cornfields every spring to make the soil fresh and ready for new seeds. One day, he took my hand and we stood together watching the flames eat through the dry stalks. He looked down at me and said something I never forgot. He said, "Do not be afraid of fire, Margaret. Fire only destroys what is already useless and dead. What is strong will survive." Those words stayed in my mind my whole life. And that night, as the heat brushed against my skin and made my eyes water, I knew that fate was teaching me that same lesson all over again. I moved carefully through the house, holding a wet cloth over my nose and mouth. The flames were already eating the dining room table and chairs that Daniel and I bought 30 years ago. The ceiling above me made terrible cracking sounds that hurt worse than the burns on my arms. I knew every inch of that house. Daniel and I had built it together, one brick at a time, one nail at a time. Every wall held a memory. Some were happy, like the birthday parties and Christmas mornings. Some were painful, like the fights and the sadness after Daniel died. And now it was all falling apart in front of my eyes, turning into ash and smoke. But the fire was not what hurt the most. It was the betrayal. It was the look in Thomas's eyes when he lit that match. Cold. Empty. Like looking at a stranger. I never thought that greed and wanting money could rot someone's heart so completely. I never imagined my own son could hate me enough to watch me burn alive. I walked slowly to the back bedroom, coughing hard with each step. Under the floor in that room, hidden beneath loose boards, I kept a metal box. Years ago, when Daniel was still alive and healthy, he pulled me aside one evening after dinner. He looked serious and worried. He said, "Margaret, if things ever go bad, if someone ever tries to take everything from you, hide this box. Do not let anyone see what is inside until the right moment comes." That box became my treasure and my burden. I carried the weight of its secret for so long. And that night, with the fire roaring around me like an angry beast, I knew the right moment had finally arrived. I dropped to my knees on the hot floor. The heat was so strong now that it hurt to breathe. I lifted the loose boards with my bare hands, not caring that splinters dug into my skin. I pulled out the metal box. It was warm to touch, almost too hot to hold, but it was still locked tight and safe. Inside were documents, old photographs, letters written in Daniel's handwriting, and something else. Something that Thomas must never, ever find. The smoke was burning my lungs now. Every breath felt like swallowing needles. My throat was on fire. But I could not stop moving. I grabbed a scarf from the dresser, wrapped it around the box several times, and tucked it under my dress against my stomach. Then I rushed to the bedroom window and pushed it open with all my strength. The fresh night air hit my face. I did not think. I just climbed onto the windowsill and jumped. I hit the wet grass of the backyard hard. Pain shot through my legs and back. I rolled on the ground and covered my face with my arms. The cool air rushed into my lungs like a gift from heaven. I lay there gasping and coughing, holding the box tight against my body. Minutes later, I heard voices shouting. The neighbors were running toward my house. They carried buckets of water and blankets. Someone was calling the fire department on their phone. They found me lying in the grass, barefoot and covered in black ash. My nightgown was torn and dirty. My eyes were open but I had no tears left to cry. "Oh my God, Margaret, what happened?" Mrs. Patterson screamed as she ran toward me. She lived 3 houses down and had always been kind to me. "It was an accident," I lied, my voice rough and broken from the smoke. "I think something went wrong with the gas stove." No one questioned me. No one suspected the truth. No one could imagine that my own son had done this terrible thing. And I did not say one single word about Thomas because life had taught me something important over the years. Sometimes, staying silent screams louder than telling the truth. Sometimes, you have to wait for the perfect moment to speak. The firefighters arrived with their loud sirens and bright red trucks. It took them almost an hour to put out the flames completely. When the smoke finally cleared and the sun started rising in the distance, my house looked like a dead thing. Just black bones and ash. A skeleton of what used to be my home. And then, through the gray morning light, I saw Thomas coming back. He came running down the street toward the burned house. He was shouting my name over and over, pretending to be scared and worried. His voice sounded desperate, but I knew better. I knew the truth. And as I watched him perform his act for the neighbors and the firefighters, I held the metal box tighter against my body and made myself a promise. Thomas thought I was dead. He thought he had won. But he was wrong. And soon, very soon, he would discover just how wrong he was. Let me take you back in time so you can understand how we got here. Let me show you how a sweet little boy became a monster. Let me tell you about the choices that led to that terrible night. I grew up poor on a farm outside a small town called Millbrook. My father grew corn and raised chickens. We did not have much money, but we had love and we had each other. My mother died when I was very young, so it was just my father and me for most of my childhood. He taught me everything. How to work hard. How to be strong. How to survive when things get difficult. And most importantly, he taught me that lesson about fire that I told you about earlier. When I was 22 years old, I met Daniel Cooper at the county fair. He was tall with kind brown eyes and a smile that made my heart feel warm. He worked at the lumber mill and saved every penny he earned. We fell in love fast and got married 6 months later in a small church with only 15 people watching. We promised each other that we would build a good life together, no matter how hard we had to work. And we did work hard. So very hard. Daniel worked at the mill during the day, and I cleaned houses for rich families in town. We saved our money in a jar under our bed. Every single dollar felt precious. After 5 years, we finally had enough to buy a small piece of land on Maple Street. We built our house with our own hands. Daniel hammered every nail. I painted every wall. It took us 2 whole years, but when we finished, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. It was ours. Nobody could take it away from us. Or so I thought. Thomas was born 3 years after we moved into that house. I remember the day so clearly. It was raining outside, and the hospital smelled like clean sheets and medicine. When the nurse placed him in my arms for the first time, I looked down at his tiny face and felt a love so big it scared me. His eyes were closed, and his little fingers wrapped around my thumb. Daniel stood next to the bed with tears running down his face. "We made a miracle, Margaret," he whispered. "We made a perfect little miracle." For the first few years, Thomas really was perfect. He laughed all the time. He loved playing with his toy cars in the backyard. He helped me bake cookies in the kitchen and got flour all over his face. When Daniel came home from work, Thomas would run to the door shouting, "Daddy! Daddy!" and jump into his arms. Those were the happiest days of my life. I thought they would last forever. But slowly, things started to change. Small things at first. When Thomas was 8 years old, I caught him hurting our cat, Whiskers. He had tied a string around her neck too tight, and she was crying. When I asked him why he did it, he just shrugged and said, "I wanted to see what would happen." That made me feel cold inside, But I told myself he was just curious. Kids do strange things sometimes, right? When he was 10, I found him stealing money from my purse. Not a lot. Just a few dollars here and there. When I confronted him, he lied straight to my face without blinking. "I did not take anything, Mom," he said, looking right into my eyes. But I knew he was lying. I could feel it in my bones. Daniel said we should punish him, but I felt sorry for Thomas. I thought maybe he needed the money for something important. I thought maybe I was not giving him enough attention. So I let it go. The real problem started when Thomas turned 16. He began hanging around with bad kids from school. Kids who smoked cigarettes behind the gym and spray-painted walls with ugly words. He started coming home late at night, sometimes smelling like alcohol. His grades dropped from As and BS to DS and FS. When Daniel tried to talk to him, Thomas would yell and slam doors. "You do not understand anything," he would scream. "You are just an old man who works at a stupid mill." Those words broke Daniel's heart. I could see it in his eyes every time Thomas disrespected him. But Daniel never gave up. He kept trying to reach our son, kept trying to show him the right path. "He is just confused," Daniel would tell me at night when we lay in bed worrying. "He will grow out of it." All teenagers go through difficult times. But Thomas did not grow out of it. He grew worse. When Thomas was 19, Daniel got sick. It started with a cough that would not go away. Then he started feeling tired all the time, too tired to go to work. I took him to Dr. Ramirez in town, and after running some tests, the doctor called us into his office with a serious face. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "It is cancer. In his lungs. It has already spread." My whole world stopped spinning that day. Cancer. The word felt like a curse. "How long does he have?" I asked, my voice shaking. Dr. Ramirez looked down at his desk. "Maybe 6 months. Maybe a year if we are lucky." Daniel lived for 8 months after that. 8 horrible months of pain and medicine and hospital visits. Thomas barely came to see his father. He was too busy with his new girlfriend, a mean girl named Veronica who only cared about expensive things and parties. When I called Thomas and begged him to visit, he always had an excuse. "I am busy, Mom," he would say coldly. "I will come next week." But next week never came. Daniel died on a Tuesday morning in April. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. The room was quiet except for the sound of the machine. Beeping. He looked at me one last time and whispered, "Take care of our boy, Margaret. No matter what happens, he is still our son." I promised him I would. But I did not know then what Thomas had become. I did not know about the evil growing in his heart. After the funeral, the lawyer, Mr. Jennings, read Daniel's will to us. Daniel had left everything to me. The house, the small savings account, and something else. A piece of land on the edge of town that nobody knew he owned. It turned out that Daniel's grandfather had left it to him years ago, and Daniel never sold it. Now it was worth a lot of money because a big company wanted to build a shopping mall there. When Thomas heard this, his eyes changed. They got darker, hungrier. "That land should be mine," he said after the lawyer left. "I am his son. I deserve it." "Your father left it to me," I said firmly. "And I will decide what to do with it when the time is right." Thomas's face turned red with anger. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You are a selfish old woman," he shouted. "You are keeping everything for yourself." "Thomas, please," I said, feeling tears come to my eyes. "Your father just died. Can we not fight about money right now?" But Thomas did not care about his father's death. He only cared about the money. He stormed out of the house and did not talk to me for 3 weeks. That was when I started to understand the truth. My son did not love me. Maybe he never really did. He only saw me as an obstacle between him and what he wanted. And what he wanted was everything I had. One day, about 2 months after Daniel died, I was cleaning Thomas's old room. He had moved out to live with Veronica, but he left some things behind. As I was organizing his closet, a piece of paper fell out of an old jacket pocket. I picked it up and started reading. My blood went cold. It was a letter from Thomas to Veronica. In it, he wrote terrible things. He wrote, "Once the old woman is gone, everything will be ours. The house, the land, all of it. We just need to be patient. Old people die all the time. It would not be suspicious if something happened to her. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the letter. My own son was planning to kill me. My own child wanted me dead so he could take my money. I sat on his bed and cried for an hour. But then I remembered my father's words about fire. I remembered Daniel's warning about the metal box. And I realized something important. I was not going to be a victim. I was going to be a survivor. I put the letter in the metal box along with all the other important documents. And I started watching Thomas very carefully, waiting to see what he would do next. I did not have to wait long. 3 weeks before the fire, Thomas came to visit me with a fake smile on his face. "Mom," he said sweetly, "I am sorry for how I acted. I was grieving and I said terrible things. Can you forgive me?" I wanted to believe him. I wanted my son back so badly. But I had read that letter. I knew the truth. So I smiled back and said, "Of course, son. You are always welcome here." He started visiting more often after that, always being nice, always acting like the perfect son. But I noticed things. I noticed him looking at the walls like he was measuring them. I noticed him asking questions about my will. I noticed the way his eyes followed me around the house, cold and calculating. And then one night, I smelled gasoline coming from the basement. When I went down to check, I found 5 red gas cans hidden behind old boxes. My heart sank. I knew what he was planning. That night, I made my own plan. I prepared everything carefully. I hid the metal box under the floorboards. I made sure the back window was unlocked. And I waited for Thomas to make his move. And he did. Now let me tell you about what was really inside that metal box. Let me tell you about the secrets that would change everything. The morning after the fire, I sat in Mrs. Patterson's guest bedroom wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender soap. My whole body hurt. I had burns on my arms and bruises on my legs from jumping out the window. But the pain in my body was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I kept thinking about Thomas's face when he lit that match. Cold. Empty. Like I was nothing to him. Like I was just garbage to be thrown away. Mrs. Patterson brought me hot tea and toast. "You poor thing," she said, patting my shoulder gently. "Losing your home like that. But thank God you are alive. That is what matters most." I nodded and pretended to be weak and scared. But inside, my mind was working like a machine. I had the metal box hidden under the bed. I had survived. And now I needed to figure out my next move carefully. Through the window, I could see my burned house across the street. Firefighters were still there, looking through the black ruins to make sure no sparks were left. Neighbors stood around talking in small groups, shaking their heads sadly. And there, in the middle of all of them, was Thomas. He was crying. Actually crying real tears in front of everyone. His face looked terrible, all red and wet. He was hugging Veronica, and she was rubbing his back like a good girlfriend should. "My mother," he kept saying loudly so everyone could hear. "I almost lost my mother. Thank God she got out in time." I watched him through the window and felt something cold settle in my stomach. He was good at lying. Really good. If I had not known the truth, I would have believed him too. I would have thought he was a loving son worried about his mother. Detective Harris arrived around noon. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. He had been the town detective for 20 years, and everyone respected him. He knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door and asked if he could speak to me about the fire. "Of course," I said in a weak voice. "I will tell you everything I remember." We sat at Mrs. Patterson's kitchen table. Detective Harris took out a notebook and pen. "Mrs. Cooper," he said gently, "can you walk me through what happened last night?" I told him the lie I had prepared. I was in the kitchen making tea before bed. I turned on the stove, and I must have left it on by accident. I went upstairs to watch some television, and about an hour later, I smelled smoke. By the time I got downstairs, the whole living room was on fire. I barely escaped through the back window. Detective Harris wrote everything down. "Did you notice anything strange before the fire? Any problems with the gas stove? Any unusual smells?" "No," I lied, shaking my head. "Everything seemed normal. I am just an old woman who made a terrible mistake." He looked at me for a long moment. I could see him studying my face, trying to read me. "Mrs. Cooper," he said slowly, "the fire department found something interesting. There were traces of gasoline in multiple rooms. A lot of gasoline. That is not normal for an accidental stove fire. My heart jumped, but I kept my face calm. Gasoline, I said, pretending to be confused. I do not understand. Why would there be gasoline inside my house? That is what we are trying to figure out, Detective Harris said. Did anyone else have access to your house? Anyone with keys? I paused like I was thinking hard. Only my son Thomas. He has a spare key in case of emergencies. Detective Harris wrote that down. And where was your son last night? I do not know, I said truthfully. We have not been talking much lately. We had some disagreements about money after my husband died. What kind of disagreements? I took a deep breath. Thomas wanted me to sell some land that his father left to me. But I was not ready to sell yet. It made him angry. Detective Harris nodded slowly. I see. And did Thomas ever threaten you? Ever say anything that worried you? This was my chance. I could tell Detective Harris everything right now. I could show him the letter I found in Thomas's room. I could tell him about the gasoline cans in the basement. I could end this whole thing today. But something stopped me. Maybe it was mother's instinct. Maybe it was strategy. Or maybe I just wanted to watch Thomas dig his own grave deeper and deeper until there was no way out. No, I lied, looking down at my teacup. Thomas would never hurt me. He is my son. Despite our problems, I know he loves me. Detective Harris studied me again with those sharp eyes. I could tell he did not believe me completely, but he could not prove anything. All right, Mrs. Cooper, he said, closing his notebook. We will continue investigating. If you remember anything else, anything at all, please call me immediately. He handed me his card. After Detective Harris left, I waited until Mrs. Patterson went to the grocery store. Then I locked the bedroom door, pulled out the metal box, and opened it with a small key I kept on a chain around my neck. Inside, everything was exactly as I left it. On top were the documents. Daniel's original will, leaving everything to me. The deed to the house. The deed to the valuable land. Bank statements showing all our savings. Then there were photographs. Pictures of Thomas as a baby, as a little boy, as a teenager. Looking at them hurt so much I almost closed the box right away. But underneath the photographs was what really mattered. First, there was the letter I found in Thomas's jacket. The one where he talked about waiting for me to die so he could take everything. That letter alone proved he had a motive. Second, there were more letters. Letters I found hidden in Thomas's old bedroom after I discovered the first one. In these letters, Thomas wrote to Veronica about different ways to kill me. Maybe she could fall down the stairs, one letter said. Or maybe her medication could get mixed up. Old people die from accidents all the time. Reading those letters again made me feel sick. But I forced myself to keep going. Third, there was a voice recording on a small digital recorder Daniel had bought years ago. 3 days before the fire, I had hidden this recorder in the living room. On it, you could hear Thomas and Veronica talking. We need to do it soon, Thomas said on the recording. She is getting suspicious. I think she knows something. Are you sure about this? Veronica asked. What if someone figures it out? Nobody will figure it out, Thomas said confidently. The house is old. The wiring is bad. Everyone will think it was an electrical fire. And once she is gone, we will be rich. We can finally live the life we deserve. That recording was my proof. My evidence. My weapon. But there was one more thing in the box. Something even Thomas did not know existed. It was another will. A secret will that Daniel had written 2 weeks before he died. Daniel must have known something was wrong with Thomas. Maybe he saw the same cold look in Thomas's eyes that I saw. Maybe he heard Thomas say cruel things when he thought nobody was listening. Whatever the reason, Daniel wrote a second will and hid it in this box. In this secret will, Daniel left everything to me, just like the first will. But he added a special condition. The condition said that if I died under suspicious circumstances within 5 years of his death, everything would go to charity instead of Thomas. Every penny. Every piece of property. Thomas would get nothing. Daniel had protected me even from beyond the grave. He had made sure that killing me would be pointless for Thomas. But this will was never filed with the lawyer. Only I knew about it. And I had kept it secret, waiting for the right moment to use it. Now, sitting in Mrs. Patterson's guest bedroom with all this evidence spread out before me, I knew exactly what I had to do. But I needed to be patient. I needed to let Thomas think he had won. I needed to let him relax and get comfortable and make mistakes. That afternoon, Thomas came to visit me at Mrs. Patterson's house. He knocked softly on the door and came in with flowers and a box of my favorite chocolates. His eyes were still red from crying, and he looked exhausted. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "I am so sorry. I should have been there. I should have checked on you last night. When I heard about the fire, I thought I lost you forever." He hugged me and I let him. I hugged him back and even cried a little on his shoulder. "It is okay, Thomas," I whispered. "I am alive. That is what matters." We sat down, and Thomas held my hand. "Mom, I have been thinking. You cannot stay with the neighbors forever. Why do not you come live with Veronica and me? We have an extra room. We can take care of you." I almost laughed. He wanted me in his house where he could watch me, where he could control me, where he could try again. "That is so kind of you," I said softly. "But I do not want to be a burden. I will find a small apartment somewhere." "You are not a burden," Thomas insisted. "You are my mother. Please let me help you." "Let me think about it," I said. "Right now, I am just trying to process everything that happened." Thomas nodded. "Of course. Take your time. But Mom, there is something else we need to talk about. The house is destroyed. And with Dad's medical bills, I know money must be tight for you. Maybe now is a good time to sell that land Dad left you. We could split the money, and you would have plenty to live on." There it was. The real reason for his visit. He still wanted that land. He still wanted the money. Even after trying to kill me, his greed had not gone away. "Maybe you are right," I said, pretending to consider it. "Let me talk to the lawyer next week. We can discuss it then." Thomas's face lit up with happiness. "Really? That would be wonderful, Mom. We could both start fresh." After he left, I sat very still for a long time. I looked at the metal box hidden under the bed. I thought about Daniel and all the years we spent building our life together. I thought about the little boy Thomas used to be, the one who laughed and played and called me Mommy. And then I thought about the monster he had become. The man who poured gasoline around my house. The man who lit a match and walked away while I burned. My decision was made. Thomas wanted to play a game. Fine. I would play too. But I would play better. And when the game was over, he would lose everything. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. Every day I had to pretend. I had to act weak and broken and afraid. I had to let Thomas think he was winning. But inside, I was building my trap piece by piece, brick by brick, just like Daniel and I built our house all those years ago. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It was tiny, just 1 bedroom and a kitchen, but it was all I could afford with my savings. Thomas helped me move in, carrying boxes and setting up furniture. He was being so nice, so helpful, so perfect. It made me sick to watch him act like a caring son when I knew the truth about what he really was. "Are you sure you will be okay here, Mom?" he asked, looking around the small apartment with fake concern on his face. "It is so much smaller than the house." "I will be fine," I said, forcing a smile. "I do not need much space. Just me and my memories." Thomas hugged me goodbye, and as he walked out the door, I saw something flash in his eyes. Victory. He thought he had won. He thought the old woman was broken and defeated. He thought I would sign over the land any day now and then quietly disappear from his life. But Thomas did not know about the metal box. He did not know about the evidence I had collected. And most importantly, he did not know that I had already made my first move. 2 days after I moved into the apartment, I called Detective Harris. "Detective," I said in a shaky voice, "I remembered something about the night of the fire. Could you come visit me?" He arrived that afternoon, still wearing his serious face and carrying his notebook. We sat in my tiny living room, and I offered him coffee that he politely refused. "What did you remember, Mrs. Cooper?" he asked, pen ready. I took a deep breath, like this was very hard for me to say. A few weeks before the fire, I found something in my basement. Gas cans. 5 of them. I thought maybe Thomas was storing them for his lawnmower, but now I am not so sure. Detective Harris leaned forward. "Did you ask Thomas about the gas cans?" No, I said quietly. We were not talking much because of our arguments. I just assumed he had a reason for them being there. Mrs. Cooper, Detective Harris said carefully, is there something you are not telling me? Something about your son? I looked down at my hands, playing my part perfectly. Thomas is a good boy. He would never hurt me. But lately, he has been asking a lot about selling the land his father left me. He seems very focused on money. And yesterday, he asked me to sign some papers. What kind of papers? Papers that would give him power of attorney over my finances. He said it would make things easier since I am getting older and the fire was so traumatic. But something about it did not feel right. Detective Harris wrote this all down quickly. Did you sign the papers? Not yet, I said. I told him I needed to think about it. But he is coming back tomorrow for my answer. Mrs. Cooper, I need to be honest with you. Based on what we found at the fire scene and what you are telling me now, I think your son might be involved in starting that fire. I think you might be in danger. I let tears roll down my cheeks. Real tears this time, because even though I knew what Thomas had done, it still hurt to hear someone else say it out loud. What should I do? I whispered. First, do not sign anything, Detective Harris said firmly. Second, I want you to wear this. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked like a button. It is a recording device. If Thomas comes to visit and says anything suspicious, anything at all, this will record it. Can you do that for me? I nodded and took the device. I can try. Good. And Mrs. Cooper, one more thing. Do you have any proof of your son's intentions? Any letters, messages, anything like that? This was the moment I had been waiting for. But I could not give him everything at once. I needed to be strategic. I might have something, I said slowly. Let me look through my things. Some papers survived the fire. I will call you if I find anything important. After Detective Harris left, I sat alone in my apartment and smiled for the first time in weeks. The trap was being set. Now I just needed Thomas to walk into it. The next day, Thomas came to visit just like Detective Harris predicted. I was wearing the recording device hidden under my sweater. My hands shook a little as I let Thomas inside, but not because I was scared. Because I was excited. Finally the truth would come out. Hi Mom, Thomas said, kissing my cheek. How are you feeling today? Tired, I said. Still having nightmares about the fire. That must be so hard, Thomas said, but his eyes were cold. He sat down on my couch and pulled out a folder. I brought those papers I mentioned. The power of attorney documents. If you sign these, I can help manage your money and make sure all your bills get paid. You will not have to worry about anything. I pretended to look at the papers carefully. Thomas, I have been thinking. Maybe it is time to sell that land like you suggested. I could use the money. Thomas's whole face changed. He tried to hide it, but I saw the greed flash in his eyes. Really? That is great, Mom. That is such a smart decision. But I have one question, I said, looking right at him. Why are you so interested in that land? You have been asking about it for months. Even before the fire. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. I just want to help you, Mom. That is all. Is it? I pushed harder. Or do you want the money for yourself? Mom, why would you say something like that? Thomas said, his voice getting angry now. Everything I do is for you. Is that why you put gasoline in my basement? I said quietly. The room went completely silent. Thomas's face turned white, then red, then white again. What are you talking about? I found the gas cans, Thomas. Weeks before the fire. I know you put them there. Thomas stood up fast, knocking the coffee table with his knee. You are confused, Mom. The fire traumatized you. You are not thinking clearly. I am thinking very clearly, I said, my voice getting stronger. Clearer than I have in years. You tried to kill me, Thomas. Your own mother. For money. You are crazy, Thomas said, backing toward the door. I am trying to help you, and you accuse me of this terrible thing. Maybe you do need someone to manage your affairs. Maybe you are losing your mind. Get out, I said. Get out of my apartment right now. Thomas grabbed his folder and rushed out, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, I took off the recording device and listened to what it captured. Every word. Every lie. Every angry response. It was not a confession, but it was something. It was proof that Thomas got defensive and angry when confronted about the gasoline. I called Detective Harris immediately. "I think you should hear this," I said. He came over that evening and listened to the recording 3 times. "This is good, Mrs. Cooper. But it is not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need solid proof that he started the fire." "I know," I said. "And I can give it to you. But I need a few more days. Can you trust me?" Detective Harris looked at me for a long time. "You are planning something, are not you?" "I am planning to get justice," I said. "For me, for my husband, and for every mother whose child betrayed them." "Be careful," Detective Harris warned. "If your son really did try to kill you once, he might try again." "I am counting on it," I said. Over the next week, I became the perfect victim. I called Thomas and apologized for accusing him. I told him I was confused and scared and maybe he was right about me needing help. I told him I wanted to sell the land after all, and I was ready to sign the power of attorney papers. Thomas was so happy. Too happy. He came over with the papers again, and this time Veronica came with him. She was a skinny woman with sharp eyes and too much makeup. She smiled at me, but it was a snake smile. "Mrs. Cooper, it is so nice to finally spend time with you," Veronica said sweetly. "Thomas talks about you all the time." "I am sure he does," I said, giving her my own fake smile. We all sat down, and Thomas spread the papers across my small kitchen table. "All you have to do is sign here, here, and here," he said, pointing to different lines. "And then I can help you sell the land. We will split the money 50-50. 50-50, I said, pretending to be surprised. "That is very generous of you, Thomas." "Of course, Mom. We are family." I picked up the pen and held it over the first signature line. Thomas and Veronica both leaned forward, watching closely. And then I put the pen down. "Actually," I said calmly, "I changed my mind." Thomas's face went dark. "What?" "I am not signing anything," I said. "And I am not selling the land. In fact, I talked to a lawyer yesterday. I am leaving everything to charity when I die." "You will not get a single penny." The room exploded. Thomas jumped up so fast his chair fell over. "You cannot do that," he screamed. "That land is mine. Dad would have wanted me to have it." "Your dad wanted you to be a good person," I said, standing up to face him. "But you are not. You are a greedy, hateful man who tried to murder his own mother." "I should have made sure you burned," Thomas hissed, and the moment those words left his mouth, he realized his mistake. His hand flew to cover his lips, but it was too late. Veronica gasped. "Thomas, shut up." But Thomas could not stop now. All his rage came pouring out. "Do you know how hard it was watching you live in that big house while I had nothing? Do you know how much I hated you for keeping Dad's money from me? You deserved what happened. You deserved to burn." "Did you get all that, Detective Harris?" I said loudly. Thomas froze. His eyes went wide with terror. "What?" The bedroom door opened, and Detective Harris stepped out with another police officer. They had been hiding there the whole time, listening to everything. "Thomas Cooper," Detective Harris said, pulling out handcuffs. "You are under arrest for attempted murder and arson." Thomas tried to run, but the other officer blocked the door. They put the handcuffs on him while he screamed and cursed. Veronica started crying and saying she did not know anything about it, that it was all Thomas's idea. As they led Thomas out of my apartment, he looked back at me one last time. "I hate you," he said. "I have always hated you." "I know," I said quietly. "And that is the saddest part of all." The door closed. They were gone. And I was finally safe. Before I tell you how this story ends, I need to ask you something important. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something deep inside, please do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to this channel. It means the world to me to know that my stories matter to you. And one more thing, I love reading your comments. Tell me what city or country you are watching from. Tell me what you thought about Margaret's story. I read every single comment, and your words give me strength to keep sharing these stories. Now, Let me tell you how everything ended. The trial happened 6 months later. Those 6 months were the longest of my life. I had to tell my story over and over again. To lawyers, to judges, to reporters who wanted to write about the mother whose son tried to burn her alive. Every time I told it, it hurt a little less, but the pain never completely went away. Thomas hired an expensive lawyer who tried to say I was lying. They said I was a bitter old woman who was angry at her son for wanting his fair share of his father's inheritance. They said the gasoline cans could have been there for any reason. They said Thomas's angry words in my apartment were just the reaction of a frustrated son dealing with a difficult mother. But I had evidence. So much evidence. I had the letters where Thomas wrote about waiting for me to die. I had the recording where he and Veronica talked about making my death look like an accident. I had the recording from my apartment where he said, "I should have made sure you burned." And most importantly, I had Daniel's secret will that proved Thomas would get nothing if I died suspiciously. The prosecutor, a smart woman named Ms. Chen, presented everything to the jury. She showed them the gasoline receipts with Thomas's credit card. She brought in firefighters who testified about finding gasoline poured throughout my house. She played the recordings where you could hear the hate in Thomas's voice. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand on shaky legs. The courtroom was packed with people. I saw Thomas sitting at the defense table in a suit, trying to look innocent. Veronica sat in the back row, crying into a tissue. Ms. Chen asked me to tell the jury what happened the night of the fire. I took a deep breath and began. My son came to my house that night. I did not know he was coming. I was getting ready for bed when I heard the front door open. I thought maybe I forgot to lock it, so I went downstairs to check. "What did you see when you got downstairs?" Ms. Chen asked. I saw Thomas standing in the living room holding a match. There was a terrible smell of gasoline everywhere. I could see it on the floor, on the furniture, on the curtains. And I saw his eyes. They were cold and empty, like he was looking at a stranger, not his mother. "What did he say to you?" I looked right at Thomas as I answered. He said, "You will burn with this house, you cursed old woman." Then he lit the match and threw it on the curtain. The fire started immediately. He walked out, locked the door, and left me there to die. How did you escape? I knew my house well. I knew there was a window in the back bedroom that I had left unlocked because the latch was broken. I covered my face and ran through the smoke. I climbed out the window and jumped to the ground. If I had waited even one more minute, I would have died. The courtroom was completely silent. Some people in the jury were crying. Thomas's lawyer stood up and tried to make me look confused during cross-examination, but I stayed calm and told the truth. I would not let them twist my words. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Finally, it was time for the jury to decide. They went into a private room to discuss everything they had heard. I sat in the courthouse cafeteria with Detective Harris, drinking bad coffee and waiting. "How are you holding up?" Detective Harris asked. "I am tired," I said honestly. Tired of reliving that night over and over. Tired of seeing my son's face on the news. Tired of people asking me how a mother could send her own son to prison. "You are not sending him to prison," Detective Harris said firmly. "He sent himself there when he tried to kill you. You are just making sure he faces consequences for his actions." After 5 hours, the jury came back. We all returned to the courtroom. The judge asked the jury foreman to stand. "Have you reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor," the foreman said. He was an older man who reminded me of Daniel. "We find the defendant, Thomas Cooper, guilty of attempted murder in the first degree. We also find him guilty of arson in the first degree." The courtroom erupted. People started talking all at once. Thomas dropped his head into his hands. Veronica ran out crying. The judge banged his gavel and called for order. 2 weeks later, Thomas was sentenced. The judge gave him 25 years in prison. 25 years for trying to kill his own mother for money. As they led him away in handcuffs, Thomas looked at me one last time. This time, he did not look angry. He looked broken and small and lost. I felt many things in that moment. Relief. Sadness. Victory. Grief. But most of all, I felt free. After the trial ended, I sold the land that had caused so much pain. The company that wanted to build the shopping mall paid me a fair price. It was a lot of money. More money than I had ever seen in my life. I kept some of it for myself. I bought a nice small house in a quiet neighborhood with a garden where I could plant tomatoes and roses. But most of the money I gave away. I donated it to charities that help abuse victims and families dealing with betrayal. I wanted Daniel's land to do some good in the world, to heal instead of destroy. I also started volunteering at a women's shelter, talking to mothers who had been hurt by their own children. It happens more than people think. Sons who steal from their mothers. Daughters who abandon their aging parents. Children who see their parents as obstacles instead of people who love them. I told them my story. I told them about the fire and the trial and the pain that never completely goes away. But I also told them about survival. About how we are stronger than we think. About how justice sometimes takes time, but it does come if we are patient and brave. 1 year after the fire, I visited my old house. Someone had bought the land and cleared away all the burned ruins. Now it was just an empty lot with fresh grass growing. I stood there for a long time, remembering the life Daniel and I built together. Remembering Thomas as a little boy, laughing and playing and calling me mommy. I cried. I let myself cry for all of it. For the love that turned to hate. For the son I lost. For the mother I used to be. And when I was done crying, I took a deep breath and walked away. Some things burn down so completely that you cannot rebuild them. You can only let them go and start fresh somewhere else. I am 72 years old now. I have gray hair and wrinkles and hands that shake when I am tired. But I am alive. I survived. And that matters. People sometimes ask me if I regret sending Thomas to prison. They ask if I wish I had just forgiven him and moved on. And I tell them the truth. I do not regret it. Not for 1 second. What I regret is that I did not see the signs earlier. I regret that I made excuses for his behavior when he was young. I regret that I loved him so much I was blind to what he was becoming. But I do not regret seeking justice. Because justice is not about revenge. It is about saying that some things are wrong, and people who do wrong things must face consequences. Even if that person is your own child. Sometimes late at night, I think about Thomas in his prison cell. I wonder if he ever thinks about me. I wonder if he ever feels sorry for what he did. I wonder if he remembers the mother who held him when he was scared, who bandaged his knees when he fell, who loved him with every piece of her heart. I will never know the answers to those questions. And maybe that is okay. Maybe some questions are not meant to be answered. What I do know is this. My father was right about fire. Fire destroys what is useless and what is already dead. And from those ashes, something new can grow. I grew. I became stronger. I became wiser. I became someone who knows that survival is not just about staying alive. It is about choosing to live fully, even after the worst has happened. I have a good life now. I have friends. I have my garden. I have quiet mornings drinking coffee on my porch and watching the sunrise. I have peace. And that is more than enough. This is my story. This is how I survived the night my son tried to burn me alive. This is how I found justice and started over. And if you are going through something hard right now, if someone you love has betrayed you or hurt you, I want you to know something important. You are stronger than you think. You can survive this. And on the other side of the pain, there is life waiting for you. Good life. Beautiful life. Life worth fighting for. Do not give up. Do not let the fire win. Remember what my father said. Fire only destroys what is useless. And you, my friend, are not useless. You are precious. You are important. You are worth saving. So save yourself. Fight for yourself. And when the smoke clears and the ashes settle, stand up tall and start again. Because you can. Because you must. Because you deserve to live. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, if this touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me your thoughts. Tell me where you are watching from. Your words matter to me more than you know. Until next time, stay strong and stay safe. This is Margaret Cooper, signing off.